Part 27. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhenshen. Chapter 261. It seems that Li Huamei is really going to deceive herself. But this is good news for the researcher. No wonder Li Huamei gave the researcher a light kiss when she left. That was a precaution. Now the temptation is in front of him. If the researcher agrees to this, he may be able to get both money and women. He can finally end his decades of virginity. If Zhang Xiaoming says that he is not tempted, it is a lie that no one would believe. But the land of gentleness is the tomb of heroes. Countless heroes from ancient times to the present have fallen for beauty. Although I am not a hero, I can learn from the lesson, right? If I really take advantage of the opportunity at this time. Xiaoming really doesn't know how to face himself. This is a bad thing. Even if I succeed now, I feel that I will suffer a great loss in the future. I must not do this. What's more, Xiaoming himself has a way to solve Richard's problem. Is it to help others and be a good person, or to take advantage of the opportunity and get both money and beauty? It seemed that an angel and a demon were arguing in Yin Xiaoming's heart. In fact, it didn't take long for Xiaoming to decide to make it happen. The otaku attribute easily prevailed. Not to mention the current situation. Even if Xiaoming couldn't help Richard, it would be difficult for him to take over at this time. He really couldn't do it. Besides, this is a game. If you want, you might as well use Zhang Xiaoliang's body to find Cecilia. That was an obvious honey trap, waiting for Xiaoliang to take the bait. Even the two sides had a tacit understanding on this issue. Xiaoming was not in a hurry. Ignoring the demon in his heart who was vomiting blood, Xiaoming squeezed out a sincere expression and said in a seemingly very sincere tone. "Admiral, you should have told me about this earlier. I have a way to revive Mr. Richard." "Really? Then tell me." The beautiful Admiral was not overjoyed, but said this very calmly. Listening to Xiaoming's ears, he couldn't help but feel a little heartache. How many times of disappointment after shattered hopes would lead to such a desperate reaction? If it weren't for the dream of reviving the nation, this woman would have been disheartened. No, Xiaoming made up his mind at this time, for Li Huamei, he must save Richard. "Admiral, please rest assured, I have a friend who can summon a fourth-level angel, who should be able to revive Mr. Richard." Xiaoming must first tell the means of resurrection. Because he was also worried that this method might not be useful here. According to the setting of the adventure map, generally high-level NPCs can be resurrected through the temple. There is also a temple of light on the strategic map. Li Huamei couldn't have thought of this. There must be some special reason that Richard couldn't be resurrected through the temple. Xiaoming couldn't guess what the specific reason was. He needed to ask clearly first. Sure enough, Li Huamei smiled bitterly and told the reason. Richard's situation was very special. Because of his heresy, the Ming dynasty's Temple of Light marked him with a prohibition of resurrection. Therefore, the Temple of Light of the Ming dynasty cannot revive Richard. Otherwise, there would be no need to look for Taoist priests everywhere. Xiaoming was happy when he heard this. "Admiral, it's such a coincidence. My friend is not from the Ming dynasty. Maybe he can revive Mr. Li." Li Huamei was still unmoved after hearing this. "I have also been to the Temple of Light in Xinluo. This is not something that can be done by changing countries. What if it changes to another dynasty or another plane?" Xiaoming only thought about this in his mind and did not say it out loud. Instead, he persuaded from another angle, "It doesn't take a long time, about 10 minutes. There is no harm in trying." Li Huamei thought about it and it made sense. So she agreed to let the researcher try. According to the researcher's request, she transferred the ownership of the ice coffin to the researcher. Xiaoming planned to put it in his backpack, store it in the warehouse, and then let the explorer take it out, and then use the angel gate to summon the angel to revive Richard. Perfect. But I didn't expect that this ice coffin was a special item. Except for Li Huamei herself, no one else can carry the ice coffin with them. There is no way to put it in a backpack, nor can it be stored in a warehouse, let alone stuffed into Guangmingding. In fact, there is also a question of how to return to Xinluo after resurrecting at the explorer's side. What the hell is this? Xiaoming felt that he had finally been smart, but it was all in vain. If you want the explorer to come to Xinluo, there is almost no possibility in the short term. Is it really only possible to take advantage of others by using the transformation technique? Seeing this, Li Huamei did not say much, but stared at the researcher's eyes with her deep eyes. The pleading in her eyes was very obvious. The meaning in her eyes was clearly, I really can't stand it, please fulfill my wish. Xiaoming almost blurted out okay. Suddenly, he had a sudden inspiration. This time he didn't ask any more questions. Just do it directly. If you can accept that you have changed your essence, then you can probably accept becoming a ghost, right? At least it's still the original person. The researcher released Death Harvest on the ice coffin. Xiaoming was forced into a corner. Facing a special NPC, Death Harvest is almost certain to harvest the undead army. But it is hard to say how much of Richard's past memories can be retained. In order to increase the success rate, Xiaoming even recalled Green Xiaoming at this moment. And instead of using magic power to drive the Death Harvest, it directly used dual source energy to drive the Death Harvest. I kept hoping that Richard's appearance must be preserved, it must be preserved. After a flash of silver and green interweaving light, the ice coffin disappeared. There was no breath of death, no bones. It was indeed an undead army. Richard seemed to have been resurrected. He sat up like that, glanced at the researcher, and then stared at Li Huamei. Li Huamei didn't even dare to breathe, her eyes were filled with tears, her hands were clenched, and her whole body was trembling. As if waiting for the verdict, she stared at Richard, waiting for his first words. To see if he still remembered herself. At this moment, the air in the whole room seemed to solidify, heavy and depressing. Xiaoming also felt as if he couldn't breathe. Where is this place? Why are we here? You seem. Richard finally spoke. As soon as the sentence came out, it was clear that the memory was well preserved, and the feelings of the past in the heart of the beautiful admiral came back again. Without saying a word, she rushed forward like a hungry tiger, hugged her beloved in her arms, and cried. She couldn't even say a complete sentence. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 262. Xiaoming carefully looked at Richard's life energy, and he should not have any bad intentions. So he quietly left the house, leaving the room to this pair of infatuated men and women. The researcher rented a large yard using Saeed's identity. The researcher came into the yard and chatted with his subordinate Lin Shen to relieve his boredom. At the same time, he made an exchange and left Green Xiaoming with the researcher to wait for news. Silver Xiaoming returned to the diver to continue protecting the mermaid and octopus on their way. Why did he exchange? Xiaoming felt that the green source energy played a big role in rescuing Richard this time. In order to prevent any accidents, he made this exchange. He left Green Xiaoming to be on guard. As for what Richard's current state is, Xiaoming can't say for sure. Generally speaking, the undead soldiers obtained by Death Harvest will become the subordinates of the player character. You can check it directly in your personal information. But this time Xiaoming did not use magic, but source energy. The Death Harvest performed in this way is not the Death Harvest skill in the normal game. Perhaps it should be renamed as Source Energy skill. In the Magic Planet game, many skills, or magic are real. However, there will be some adjustments in the game. Because most players will not use these skills, they must cooperate with the game system to use the skills normally. So the effects of these skills are also set by the system. This is the normal game mode. When the player can use these skills, the game system is no longer needed. The rules in the game no longer restrict these skills. These skills will be closer to their real effects. If the skills are used through source energy, the effect is 3 times stronger than normal skills. Take the Death Harvest as an example. When Xiao Ming started using it in the game, he could only harvest skeleton soldiers, zombies, and other undead soldiers set in the system. When Xiao Ming himself has not mastered the skill, no matter what he harvests, he will get the soldiers in the system. The probability of appearance must also meet the game settings. When Xiao Ming himself masters the skill, the soldiers he gets will be more in line with the actual situation. Just like when harvesting the battlefield of dolphins and sharks, the undead sea creatures appeared. Skeleton sharks, ghost dolphins, etc., and there were no zombies. Because there was no flesh and blood. If Xiao Ming did not master the Death Harvest, some human-shaped skeleton soldiers and zombies would appear, which is a product that makes no sense but conforms to the game settings. But then again, if Xiao Ming did not master this magic, he would not be able to use it as a diver on the seabed. There is no Death Harvest skill in the diver's skill list. It is impossible to learn this skill as a diver. Today, when Xiao Ming used the source energy skill Death Harvest, the effect was even more shocking. It was almost equivalent to resurrecting Richard. And Richard no longer belonged to himself, and he couldn't even check his status. In essence, the magic of Death Harvest should be a magic created by the magician of the undead race to strengthen his legion. So the prerequisite is to be obedient, and the harvested soldiers must listen to you. Otherwise, what's the point of making it? Secondly, the pursuit is combat effectiveness, so there will be undead soldiers, not ordinary ghosts. The memory of life is the most unnecessary thing to keep. But this time Xiao Ming's purpose is the opposite. Xiao Ming does not need Richard to obey him, nor does he need him to be so powerful. The first thing to keep is his appearance, followed by his memory, and then his body. The rest is not important. The result is exactly in line with Xiao Ming's wishes. In fact, there are corresponding magic in the undead magic, which can resurrect a person normally. But Xiao Ming doesn't know it. He can only use the source energy to use the magic he knows, with the help of its most basic resurrection characteristics. Then make some modifications based on his own wishes. There are actually some shadows of the ability of mind in this. The principle of the ability of mind is that the mind will come true, and the heart will be sincere, the sincerity will open the stone. It is somewhat unexpected that Xiao Ming can modify it like this. Xiao Ming thought that a zombie with memory would appear, or even a ghost. The current result is perfect. Of course, it also consumed a lot of Xiao Ming's source energy. It's really a bit tiring. Xiao Ming was chatting with Lin Shen in the yard. He waited for an hour or so before Li Huamei asked him to come in. It took so long, did you two create humans in there? Xiao Ming thought obscenely. My benefactor, please accept Richard/Li Huamei's respect. As soon as he entered the door, he saw Richard and Li Huamei kneeling on the ground in front of the researcher and kowtowed several times. This etiquette was too much, and Xiao Ming was scared and at a loss. No one had ever kowtowed to him since he was a child. How could he accept such a great gift? Xiao Ming was afraid that his life would be shortened, so he quickly dodged. I dare not, please stand up, if you continue like this, we can't talk properly. The three of them pushed and shoved for a while before they calmed down. They sat down and talked. What is Richard's situation now? According to him, he should have been transformed into a lich now. In the game setting, the lich is the upgraded profession of the necromancer, generally level 5-6, and the lowest is a level 4 soldier. But Richard originally had no combat profession. Although he was transformed into a lich, he was only a level 0 lich. It is equivalent to a level 0 necromancer. Basically, He has no strong abilities, and he only masters the most basic undead magic. But the growth rate should be good. Although he is an undead race, he has been transformed very perfectly. Not only does he have a body, but he also has temperature. He can even drink water and eat at ordinary times, and he must drink water and eat, otherwise his body will degenerate. Of course, he also needs to consume the breath of death to survive. But the amount required is not much. Much less than the dead. Richard's current state is almost the same as that of an ordinary person. I don't know if he has the function of creating humans. Xiaoming is really embarrassed to ask about this. The two of them decided not to announce the news of Richard's resurrection. Richard will hide behind Li Huamei from now on and use his talents to assist Li Huamei with all his strength. For this purpose, Xiaoming specially borrowed the death coin of the dead to transform Richard into a general of the undead. Normally, a newly born undead cannot be transformed and needs time to adapt to the state of the undead. However, Richard was easily transformed into a general. The reason may be that he has been dead for a long time. It is easy to adapt. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 263. How can there be no reward for saving Richard? According to the original idea of the game creator, it is very difficult for the player to gain Li Huamei's trust and reveal Richard's story to her. The favorability with Li Huamei must be at least 70. The researcher only had 40 at the time, and it was only because of the ancient transformation that it was immediately raised to 50. It was also because of the ancient transformation that Li Huamei saw another hope. So the researcher bypassed the first threshold of 70 favorability. There are other methods that can achieve similar effects as the ancient transformation. For example, making a human skin puppet. But at this time, the choice given to the player by the game system is actually a crisis. Taking shortcuts is not necessarily a good thing. Faced with Li Huamei's request to transform into Richard, the researcher has only 3 choices: 1. Agree, 2. Refuse, 3. Find other ways. If you refuse, no need to ask, the obsessed Li Huamei will definitely have a favorability of 0. Expelling the driller from the fleet is a light punishment. Once the support of Li Huamei's forces is lost, the driller will have to return to the adventure map and start over. Find a force that can support him. The problem is that when he returns to the adventure map, he will definitely return to the elf city on the archipelago Donjon City. It can be said that it is another epic task to find a force there to support him as a human and conquer the strategic map. If you agree to transform, it should be good at the beginning, and you may really get an advantage. You can get both money and beauty. However, Li Huamei will never let the driller's transformed Richard leave her side. Then the development of the driller will definitely be greatly restricted. Besides, fake is fake after all, and one day Li Huamei will realize that this person is not the real Richard. And she will also find that Richard's body has been eaten by the transformation atlas. It is impossible to resurrect again. At that time, the driller will have to face Li Huamei's anger. Even if this anger is very unreasonable. But this is originally a trap of the system, who can reason with? The result will be worse than the original rejection. The only real chance left for the player is to find a feasible way to resurrect Richard. It may not be possible to do it immediately, but the player's method must be effective in the short term. Of course, there are many solutions. The simplest one is to find a way to lift the restrictions on Richard's resurrection by the Temple of Light. The Ming Dynasty court and the temple system are already extremely corrupt. As long as the player pays a large sum of money to the Temple of Light, it will be fine. The difficulty is that the player needs to climb to a certain position before he is qualified to talk to the Temple of Light face to face about this matter. Otherwise, You can't even find the door to give gifts. A more complicated one is to resurrect in disguise, including transforming into a spirit, transforming into a puppet, or going to the adventure map to resurrect Richard. The difficulty varies, depending on the player's choice. The specific requirements are, Richard must maintain his form after resurrection and have enough memory. It doesn't matter if he is a little stupid, but he can't be impersonated by others. If he is an impersonator, then it will go back to the choice of the ancient transformation technique. It is equivalent to mission failure. The result of the player's solution to this problem also determines the degree of reward the player receives. The highest reward is undoubtedly to revive Richard in human form, with his memory completely preserved and without any restrictions. This is the highest benefit. This restriction mainly refers to time and space restrictions. Some resurrection methods will cause Richard to be able to move normally for only a few hours a day, and the rest of the time he must be in a state of sleep. Some resurrection methods will limit Richard's range of activities, so that Richard can only move in a certain area, usually within a certain barrier. Once there is such a restriction, the reward will naturally be greatly reduced. The reward is slightly worse, like Xiaoming, who resurrected Richard in another form, and his memory was completely preserved, and there were no restrictions. The reward for this solution is only a little less than the best one. In addition, the researcher also transferred Richard to the undead general, which can also improve the evaluation of some tasks. Xiaoming has also spent a lot of effort to complete the task at such a high level, and now it is time to reap the sweet fruits. First of all, the experience reward. The adventure level of the researcher has been upgraded to level 1, level 20. If you have time, you have to go to the adventure map to complete the level 2 task. The strategic level has been upgraded to level 0, level 5, and the professional talent, primary wisdom, has been obtained. The strategic knowledge has increased by 2 points, reaching 4 points. The system has made up for it here. But Xiaoming feels that the experience reward is really a bit small. This task is actually a mid-game task, and it is still very difficult overall. The experience is indeed a bit less. However, the focus of this task reward is not on experience. Especially not on adventure experience. So the researcher did not even get it, and the adventure level was directly upgraded to level 2. Xiaoming will continue to read the real reward. The researcher officially became the Li family pirate, the admiral of the fleet, the Second Fleet. He has absolute autonomy and does not even need to hand over the spoils to the main fleet. And get a startup capital of 1 million gold coins, 100 units of each resource. Have the right to station and trade in all ports of the Li family. Seeing this, Xiaoming's eyes were filled with money. Miss Li is really rich. To be honest, Xiaoming is a little regretful. Why did he choose to help others in a moment of confusion? You know, Xiaoming has only 330,000 gold coins in his hand until now, and all resources are more than 100, only wood is more than 200. This time the funds have quadrupled, and the resources have almost doubled. Suddenly, he has gone from being well off to, very well off. With so much money, Xiaoming doesn't know how to spend it. He casually transferred 200,000 gold coins to Zhang Wen. My sister's account is still a mystery, and I can't transfer some gold coins to her. In fact, money and resources are the least noticeable in this reward. Only Xiaoming, who has little ambition, only sees the money. Becoming the admiral of the Li family fleet, the researcher has the power to officially appear in Xinluo, and no longer needs to rely on the identity of the half-orc. And the key is that the fleet has the right to do business. He is equivalent to a senior executive of a business group. This right does not even exist for the dead. The trading share of the researcher in Xinluo City has greatly increased. If he wants, he can use up all the trading share of the Li family pirates in Xinluo City. He can even organize a fleet to use up all the shares of the Li family pirates in all cities. But if he does that, all the money will be earned by the researcher, and Li Huamei's first fleet will be out of business. Of course, his 1.33 million gold coins are not enough to use up all the shares of the Li family. It's not that it's not enough, it's far from enough. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 264. On the strategic map, any hero can organize a fleet in a place with water. But strictly speaking, it is just the player's personal army taking a boat to the water. It is not the kind of fleet recognized by the system. No matter how many ships this player has and how much space he has for cargo, he is still not a businessman. His commodity trading quota is still the scale of ordinary players. If you want to really carry out large-scale commodity trading, you must have the identity of a businessman. Or a similar identity. The admiral of the pirate fleet's squadron is just such an identity. The system gives players such rewards, not intending to make players rich immediately. Because these 1 million gold coins and various resources are only enough for players to form a small fleet. And you can't buy too many ships, because you have to keep money to purchase goods. You have to pay taxes on the money you make. If a Lone Ranger player gets this kind of reward, the benefits he can get are very limited. Even ordinary small guilds can't play fleets in the early stage. This is specially prepared for large guilds after the midterm. At that time, the player guilds were rising and the heroes were fighting for hegemony. The earliest thing was a few months later. But this matter was not difficult for our classmate Zhang Xiaoming. He had too many ships. Pingnan City had dozens of wreckages of large ships, Gaibei Mountain City also had dozens of wreckages of medium-sized warships. As long as they were repaired, they could go to sea. There were also 4 glass bottles with complete ships sealed in Guangmingding. It was no problem to organize a fleet for the researcher. Xiaoming couldn't help but look forward to a bright future. In the future, he would stand on the bow of a giant warship, command a huge fleet, travel across the world, and be invincible. This is a later story, and the rewards for the researcher are far from over. As the admiral of the pirate fleet, the system rewarded the researcher with a set of special skins. Primary Pirate Admiral Skin, Direct Fleet 0/5 ships. Level 1/10. Naval Strategic Attack add 1, Naval Strategic Defense add 1, Maritime Mobility add 10%, Command add 100. You can choose to wear or not wear the skin, and you can choose to be invisible or visible. Unfortunately, the style of the skin cannot be selected. It is the kind of triangular black captain's hat and black captain's uniform. To be honest, it looks quite rustic. Because it is a pirate, the clothes are still tattered. Although it is not good looking, the effect is too brilliant. This is specially prepared for people with status such as admirals. Seeing this data, Xiaoming can also imagine how much attribute bonus those high-level leaders will get. In the future, you really have to be careful. Those NPCs with special identities, their strength is not just the surface data. Unfortunately, the skin cannot be overlapped. The researcher needs to choose whether to use the primary Pirate Admiral skin or the Round Table Knight Armor skin. When Xiaoming was hesitating, he suddenly remembered to strengthen both skins with source energy. And it was strengthened twice. The effect of strengthening the skin is very special. After the Round Table Knight Armor skin is strengthened twice, its highest level has changed from level 16 to level 25. That is, the defense can be increased by up to 2.5 times. The primary Pirate Admiral skin, after 2 enhancements, the highest level has been raised to level 30. In other words, when other primary Admiral skins are upgraded to the top, the attack and defense are at 10 each, the sea action power is doubled, the command power is at 1000. The primary Admiral skin of the Driller is upgraded to the top, the attack and defense are at 30 each, the sea action power is at 300%, the command power is at 3000. This is too awesome. Xiaoming is not sure whether the direct fleet will expand. Although it takes much longer to upgrade than others, the strength is the key. Needless to say, the driller must choose the pirate admiral skin. Strive to upgrade as soon as possible. Richard and Li Huamei, the couple, have directly raised their favorability to the driller to 70 points of intimacy. Lin Shen, the general under his command, also increased his favorability by 20 points because the driller became an admiral. Richard and Li Huamei each taught the driller a special professional talent. Li Huamei taught primary sea tactics. Passive effect: enhance the attack, defense, and durability of the 5 warships under the admiral by add 25%. Naval tactics is a professional talent that can only be learned by admiral heroes. Heroes without admiral status can only drool at it. The talent taught by Richard is the diplomacy that was praised as a god-level talent in the previous game. Diplomacy, a BT talent, is extremely difficult to learn in the Magic Planet game. It only appears in high-level tasks. Primary diplomacy, passive talent. Increase the surrender probability of neutral troops by 100% and reduce the cost of surrender by 20%. Don't think that the 100% number is scary. If the original surrender probability of neutral troops is 1%, with primary diplomacy, the surrender probability is only 2%. If the original surrender probability of the troops is 0, it is still 0 even if it is increased several times. The effect of this talent is much weaker than in the previous game. But it is still a god-level talent. Because players mainly hope that the neutral troops of their own camp will surrender. This probability is not low to begin with. This is especially true for pirates, a group with little sense of propriety and morality. If you can't win, run away, and if you can't run away, surrender. It can be expected that even if it is just a basic diplomacy, it will be of great help to researchers. Xiaoming also muttered to himself, Richard has such a good talent, it is a bit of a waste if he doesn't come out to lead an army alone. If I were Li Huamei, I would never let him hide behind the scenes. Unfortunately, I am not. It is really not Xiaoming's turn to worry about how the couple arranges. However, Xiaoming also smelled a hint of high-level tasks. If the power of the Li family pirates expands to a certain extent, when Li Huamei does not need to care about other people's eyes, it may be time for Richard to come to the front. If the player can play a certain role in this matter, it is estimated that there will be good rewards. Since the researcher's profession is an alchemist, Li Huamei specially gave the researcher a special alchemy blueprint, the first-level pirate puppet blueprint. In fact, this is the reward issued by the system through Li Huamei. If Li Huamei had this kind of blueprint, she would have used it within the Li family pirates long ago. It is not the researcher's turn. Faced with such a thoughtful reward, the researcher used the fine research technique on it and immediately learned it. This time, the research technique triggered the smallest probability and copied a first-level pirate puppet blueprint. Xiaoming took the opportunity to let the explorer learn it as well. Of course, after Xiaoming himself learns this blueprint, the explorer will naturally learn it. But this process takes a certain amount of time. Xiaoming thinks it is better to let the researcher and the explorer practice together. Learn faster. Anyway, there is an extra blueprint, it is nothing more than selling it to make some money. Haha, Xiaoming is not short of gold coins now. So he started to spend money. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 265. The port of Xinluo City is full of sails and nearly 100 ships come and go. It is worthy of being the largest port on the Korean peninsula. On the dock, countless people are surging. Most of them are coolies busy loading and unloading ships. The sun is scorching, and sweat is pouring down. The era of backward productivity is hard. A few cranes in modern society are more useful than hundreds of workers. A remote corner of the dock is also where the Li family Chunshen is moored. There are more than a dozen 4 puppet canoes patrolling around. The researcher, Richard, Li Huamei, Yang Ziyu, Lin Shen, and dozens of sailors gathered on the shore. This time, Li Huamei came to do business in name, but in fact she came to revive Richard. So this time she only brought Yang Ziyu, the old housekeeper who knew everything about him. After seeing Richard, Yang Ziyu's favorability towards the researcher also soared by 20 points. None of the other generals were brought. It's easy to talk to others, but Song Xiaofeng will definitely be unhappy. Xiaoming can imagine her childish temper. Everyone gathered at the beach not to see Li Huamei off. Business has not been done yet. This time, the researcher brought everyone here to witness the moment of miracle. Under the gaze of everyone, the researcher took out a glass bottle with a battleship sealed in it from Guangmingding. Yes, Xiaoming planned to release a battleship. In case there were people on it, Li Huamei and the others could help to subdue it. The researcher pulled the stopper of the glass bottle very pretentiously, but it didn't come out. Pulled again, but it still didn't come out. I really don't believe it. The researcher used all his strength, but still couldn't pull it out. The onlookers looked at the researcher's weird expression and funny movements. They didn't give him any face at all, and all laughed out loud. Yang Ziyu, who was old but still strong, laughed the most heartily. The researcher saw the system prompt: this item can only be used by the diver, and no one else can use it. Damn, there is such a restriction. The researcher and the diver are different roles of the same player, but it doesn't work. The system is really strict. But what should I do now? It's too embarrassing. I can't lose face. Xiaoming gritted his teeth and transported the wreckage of a large warship from the deceased to Guangmingding. He took the broken ship out of Guangmingding from the researcher. Put it next to Chun Shen. When they saw the wreckage of the large ship, everyone was stunned. Old man Yang was laughing happily, and he choked and almost couldn't breathe. After all, this large ship was a wreckage, and it started to take on water when it was placed on the dock. Xiaoming didn't have time to think about it, and he got into the ship. Take out various resources, mainly wood. Hot-blooded Neza and iron-blooded Neza came out together to cooperate with the source energy to repair the warship. After working for nearly half an hour, the large warship finally looked brand new. It consumed a lot of resources and energy. This is a large Arab warship. The researcher pretended to be generous and gave the ship to Admiral Li Huamei. She accepted it without hesitation. A small ship costs about 1,000 to 3,000 gold coins, a medium-sized ship costs 10,000 to 30,000 gold coins, and so on. The factory price of this large Arab warship is about 200,000 gold coins. However, the larger the ship, the more modifications, or customization, it needs before leaving the factory. The shipyard must make special modifications according to the customer's requirements. In addition, various parts such as cannons, sails, rams, armor, etc. must be installed. A large warship cannot leave the factory without about 500,000 gold coins. This large Arab warship is already equipped with a complete warship. After loading supplies, you can go out and start the war directly. When Xiaoming used energy to repair, he not only repaired the hull. Even the sails, cannons, rams, etc. were all repaired. The people on the shore who were already stunned were almost dumbfounded at this moment. Is this something that humans can do? It is not particularly scary to conjure a large ship out of thin air. This is a magical world. Li Huamei and Richard have heard of several methods of putting sumi into a mustard seed. But such a large ship wreckage, even if it is pulled into the shipyard, it will take several days to repair. And it is only the hull that is repaired. Cannons and other things have to be purchased separately. In front of everyone, the researcher actually took only half an hour to repair the entire ship. It looks like new. This can only be described as a miracle. The researcher must be a human being favored by the gods, and it is very likely to be the god of craftsmen or the god of alchemy. This skill of the researcher is simply too important for people who make a living on the sea. Seeing such a miracle, several heroes and generals collectively increased their favorability by 10 points. Those NPC sailors have increased their favorability by 20-40 points. And when Li Huamei returns to Diaokan with a large Arab warship, the deeds of the driller will spread among the Li family pirate generals, and all Li family generals will increase their favorability by 10 points. However, Li Huamei issued a gag order to the ordinary crew members of the Li family pirates. The miracle created by the driller has not been spread. The gag order is naturally not to let the driller be exposed too early to avoid unnecessary danger. Everyone present today, including the sailors, are Li Huamei's iron confidants. But there must be spies from other forces among the Li family pirates in Diaokan. Let them know that the trump card of the Li family is the driller, then Xiaoming will have a hard time in the future. It is civilized to spend a lot of money to poach talents. Kidnapping, assassination, etc. will definitely be indispensable. Although players can still be resurrected after death, the NPC also knows this and must have measures in place. Therefore, Li Huamei's consideration was very thorough. Xiaoming's behavior was a bit impulsive. Some people may ask, a large warship only costs several $100,000, and it's not like Li Huamei can't afford the money, why does she still use medium-sized warships? This involves the issue of the development level of East Asia's shipbuilding industry. In the entire Asia, there is only one city qualified to build large ships, and that is Hangzhou in the Ming Dynasty. In other port cities only medium-sized ships can be built, and some do not even have shipyards. Hangzhou is the only shipyard in Asia that is qualified to build large ships. Isn't this great? Why didn't the Li family buy it? This involves another issue. Ming Dynasty's national policy prohibits going to sea. Therefore, although the shipyard in Hangzhou was powerful, its martial arts was abolished by the Ming Dynasty. Now there is not even a single drawing of a large ship in the shipyard, there is not a single craftsman who can build large ships. This shipyard can still exist today because ships on the river still need to be built. Many aristocratic families in the south are doing business on the canal and the Yangtze River. Therefore, the demand for small and medium-sized ships is very large. Only then did the Hangzhou shipyard be saved. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 266. In fact, these aristocratic families in Jiangnan, Ming Dynasty, not only sail on the river, but also do smuggling business at sea, and even many of them act as pirates. Unfortunately, even so, they don't have large ships. After all, in East Asia, medium-sized ships are enough. These families are greedy and short-sighted. Except for Li Huamei, probably no one has set their sights on the farther west. European countries of the same period are already using large ships, even giant ships. And they are also actively opening up routes to East Asia. Once Western colonists come to East Asia, dozens or even hundreds of large warships can overwhelm all local forces. They are Li Huamei's real enemies. Li Huamei is now actually racing against time. She must build a strong enough navy before the Europeans arrive. Otherwise, Ming Dynasty will be defeated. And the premise of all this is that she must first defeat her mortal enemy, the pirates of Ladao. Fortunately, Westerners were strongly blocked by the Arab Empire in the Indian Ocean. It is difficult to pass in a short time. So far, the Europeans have only had some medium-sized ships that have entered Southeast Asia. This area is enough for them to toss around for a while. Of course, this is a game after all, and almost all the people who enter the game are citizens of the new Han Kingdom. Even if there are players who defeat Asia from Europe, they are Chinese. As for the NPC forces on the strategic map, there will be large guilds to deal with them. Besides, with the large warships and Richard's Lee family pirates, they will soon enter the fast lane of rapid development. It is very likely that in the future, Li Huamei will lead the Li family pirates to fight without waiting for the Westerners to come. Li Huamei was overjoyed and paid the researcher 10 million gold coins with a wave of her hand. 5 large warships were ordered. This also includes the large Arab ship that has been obtained. An average of 2 million per ship. This price is not expensive at all. Large warships are priceless and unmarketable in East Asia. They are definitely in short supply. Li Huamei will still pay for them even if they are several times more expensive. But this is a game, the system still has to impose certain restrictions on players, including this kind of in-demand goods. Players can never take some glass balls to America to exchange for a large amount of gold. The price difference has long been limited by the system. The same is true for large battleships, 2 million is almost the highest. Originally, the researcher could deliver the goods immediately. But Xiao Ming was cautious and thought that he should take it easy. He couldn't appear too outrageous. So he made an agreement with the beautiful admiral that the next time the researcher went to Diaokan, he would deliver the remaining 4 large battleships. He also collected the remaining rewards along the way. In addition to gold coins, resources, experience, admiral status, professional talents and alchemy drawings, the researcher saved Richard and got another 2 rewards. One is the treasure reward, compass. Function, navigator's measurement ability add 24. What the hell is this navigator? Xiao Ming was puzzled. The system gave an explanation. When the player has the status of admiral, according to the level of the admiral and the size of the flagship, the player can appoint some navigators in special positions. These navigators can provide additional functions or bonuses for the admiral's fleet. For example, adjutant, surveyor, gunner, chief accountant, etc. Navigators can be generals or followers, and of course free NPCs can be hired. Among them, surveyors rely on the measurement ability of NPCs to play a role. A good surveyor can always know the latitude and longitude of the player's fleet. If the admiral wants to make an accurate sea chart, he must have a good surveyor. The treasure compass is also prepared for the surveyor. But now the researcher does not even have a ship, so he cannot appoint a navigator. This treasure can only be idle for the time being. When Xiao Ming switched roles, he naturally strengthened the compass twice. After strengthening, the measurement ability adds 72. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Xiao Ming strengthened many items twice. Among them is the Human Enhancement Potion Type 2 obtained from the Secret Realm of Captain America 1. However, after strengthening this potion twice, no special effect was seen. Because the introduction of this item is very vague, it only says that it can strengthen the quality of the human body. The specific effect will vary from person to person and from place to place. Different secret realms and different people will have different effects after using it. This strengthening potion is mainly used by those whose physical fitness is not particularly high. Xiao Ming was just a little short of it, so he gave it to the researcher. After several considerations, he finally stopped at the brink. This kind of general item is for emergency use. It would be a pity to use it now. However, there is one thing that turned waste into treasure after strengthening it twice. That is the glass bottle that was used to seal the Flying Dutchman battleship. It was originally a useless thing, but the diver still picked it up and put it in Guangmingding. He was just going to strengthen it later. This strengthening is incredible. This glass bottle has the ability to seal a ship and its crew again. And it is twice. The premise is that the ship and the people must belong to Xiao Ming. Considering that the diver still has 4 bottles, this is a set of treasures that can easily transport troops. The biggest feature of this bottle is that it can be put into a backpack, warehouse, or Guangmingding at will. The last reward that Li Huamei gave to the researcher was a person. The half-elf General Julian Louisy. He is a new general of the Li family navy. At the beginning, Li Huamei led everyone to steal a treasure, the golden crown of Xinluo in the tomb of King Wuning outside Xinluo city. This treasure was used to recruit this Julian Luisi. Li Huamei met this half-elf general by chance when he was doing business in Hangzhou. He accepted his task of finding the golden crown of Xinluo. After getting this treasure, Li Huamei went to Hangzhou. Luisi got the golden crown, so he naturally joined the Li family pirates. He followed Li Huamei to Diaocan. Now that the researcher has been appointed as the admiral of the Second Fleet, Li Huamei must send a general who is familiar with the sea to help. The previous generals, Yang Ziyu, Yan Duque, James Lewei, Xingju Beimu, and others, all have fixed positions. If any one of them is suddenly assigned away, the Li family fleet will always be a little out of place. No one will take care of the matter he is responsible for. La Bossi is just right. He is just a newcomer and has no fixed position. It is just right to assign him to the researcher as an assistant. However, his people are now in Diaocan, so when the researcher goes to Diaocan to deliver 4 large warships in the future, he can be taken away. Another person who is fine is Song Xiaofeng. This little girl is more likely to cause trouble than to help. It is impossible to assign her to the researcher. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 267. After leaving Xinluo Wharf, Li Huamei and Richard went to enjoy their own world. Like a couple, they went shopping in Xinluo City. The beautiful admiral threw all the matters such as receiving, supplying, and even purchasing large Arab warships to old man Yang. Yang Ziyu was happy for her eldest daughter and went to work happily. Yin Xiaoming sent Lin Shen to understand the market in Xinluo City, and he operated the researcher to the temple. He planned to return to the adventure map to take the task of upgrading the adventure level to level 2. At this time, Lu Xiaoming had already brought Emily and Bobby back to Huiyin town. According to the convention, the 2 little guys would carefully select the things they picked up, keep the fun ones, and basically sell the rest to divers. After confirming the situation, Lu Xiaoming switched to the Explorer again, using the teleportation function of the golden statue of the God of Light, first went to the strategic map to meet Han Dong, and set up camp on the spot. Then he took Han Dong and Qiu Santung and teleported to the Temple of Light in the underwater limestone town, picked up the diver, and teleported to Pingnan City again to meet the dead. Finally, they arrived at the strategic map, and there was water around, a section of the river that the dead had just dug. The Flying Dutchman, David Diozzi and 300 undead pirate crew members appeared together on the river beside Pingnan City. Xiaoming's idea was that the diver would release the other 4 sealed warships and then entrust everyone to the dead. Because the diver was not yet at level 2 and had not become a hero, he himself could not lead troops to march and fight on the strategic map. But he also hoped that there would be a troop that could replace him to explore the strategic map. Lay a good foundation in advance. Just like before, Han Dong entered the strategic map before the explorer. Xiaoming's idea was good, but when it came to doing it, things became much more complicated. First of all, the control of David Diozzi could not be transferred. In theory, David followed his heart. Whoever owns his heart has control over him. But before, at the bottom of the sea, when the diver took out David's heart and subdued him. Under the witness of the ancient giant octopus, David's heart was locked in the diver's backpack. The owner can no longer be changed. Even different characters of the same player cannot. The diver cannot fight on the strategic map for the time being. He was able to appear on the strategic map entirely because of the teleportation function of the explorer's treasure. Once the diver leaves this position, it will be difficult to return to the adventure map. In this way, David Diozzi can only be left alone on the strategic map. But looking at David's terrifying life energy, if the diver is not there, I don't know what evil things he will do. This is certainly unacceptable. If he dared to let him play freely, he would have taken him in as a force under his command. The reason why he became his direct hero is not because he is worried that he will do something wrong. This matter is not easy to deal with. In addition, the diver also opened several other glass bottles. Looking forward to getting a navy led by 4 heroes or generals, even pirates are fine. As a result, these 4 bottles released 4 sealed medium-sized warships and a full ship of crew members, but unfortunately they were all corpses. When they were sealed in the glass bottles, these people might still be alive. But they are not undead, and the food they carry on the ship is limited. Xiaoming doesn't know how long they have been sealed. Anyway, when they are released now, all the crew members have died for a long time, and their bodies have become mummies. If it weren't for the special environment in the glass bottle, they should have been rotten now. Moreover, these 4 sealed warships have the same nature as the Flying Dutchman. They all belong only to the person who unsealed them, the diver. They cannot be sold or transferred. Only the diver can own them. The Flying Dutchman is even more special. To use it, David Diozzi must also be on the ship. There are no living people on these 4 ships, and the diver doesn't even know the names of these 4 warships. However, it seems that it is not bad to harvest the corpses on these 4 ships. Although the effect will be better if the source energy skill is used. But today, the source energy is a bit too much, and Xiaoming's stinginess has come up again. It happened that the dead teller was here, so the dead teller cast the magic death harvest on these 4 ships. The first obvious effect is that the special life skill of the dead teller, death harvest, has been upgraded. Now this skill is in the add 1 state. The general introduction of the skill has not changed much. In the detailed description of the system, the probability of harvesting items and undead soldiers has increased a little. At the same time, the death breath and bones harvested each time will also increase a little. So the effect of skill add 1 is a little bit improved overall. The 4 ships harvested 84 level 1 skeleton sailors, 19 level 2 zombie sailors, and 2 level 3 skeleton gunners. There are also 4 sealed undead generals. They are all green generals with strategic level 2 level 0, and the races are 2 skeletons, 1 ghost, and 1 zombie. Judging from their talents, these generals are all sea generals. They are also physical attack generals, the kind that are directly responsible for combat. Unfortunately, they were probably sealed for too long. The 4 of them have no names and no memories. In fact, they have forgotten many skills and magic. Xiaoming had to name the 4 generals as Zombie Vanguard, Skeleton Left Guard, Skeleton Right Guard, and Ghost Guard. The 4 warships were also named Vanguard, Left Guard, Right Guard, and Rear Guard. Seeing the dead, Xiaoming suddenly remembered the function of the death coin. It can transform the generals of the undead into heroes, and heroes into generals. In this way, David Diozzi's situation is easy to deal with. First, Xiaoming selected an undead with the most good-looking life energy among David's subordinates, Old Shoelace. Promoted him to general, and then transferred to hero. Then all David's subordinates were transferred to Old Shoelace to lead. At the same time, the 4 newly emerged undead generals were also assigned to Old Shoelace. So under the command of the diver, a brand new undead navy was born. Old Shoelace, a second level 0 blue hero, led 4 green undead generals, and 405 1-4 level undead navy soldiers. Driving 4 sealed medium-sized warships. Will expand the territory for the diver on the strategic map. Why only 4 ships? Because the Flying Dutchman and David Diozzi are bound. Without David on board, the ship cannot be used. David Diozzi was transferred to a second-level purple undead general. He was brought by the diver to the adventure map. As long as his heart is in the diver's backpack, he dare not do anything naughty. He can also be a good helper and bodyguard for the diver. Old Shoelace was promoted to a hero by the diver and entrusted with an important task. His favorability towards the diver is already 50. You can use it with confidence. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 268. According to the rules of the Magic Planet game, players must belong to a certain faction before they can fight on the strategic map. So which faction does the diver belong to? It may be hard to believe. The diver is actually a faction of his own. He is the leader of the faction. When the diver established the Test Temple of Light in Greystone Town and became the manager of the temple, he automatically became a faction. Those who can manage the temple must belong to the faction to which the temple belongs. And this Temple of Light under the sea is an emerging faction. The characteristics of this faction are that they believe in both the god of the sea and the god of light, and they belong to the Sea Clan. For the time being, only the diver family meets these three conditions, and there is no other family. Although this faction is very weak, it has not given itself a resounding name and has no flag of its own. But it is indeed a faction. Moreover, the leader of the faction, the diver, his first strategic force is actually all the undead clan. It makes people sigh that your circle is really messy. However, as an emerging faction, the initial force is still quite strong. 1 hero, 4 generals, more than 400 soldiers, and 4 medium-sized warships. As long as the luck is not too bad, this unit should be able to make a name for itself on the strategic map. Of course, if you want to become bigger and stronger, you still need the divers to work hard. But now, this undead unit is doing hard labor, trying to dig the river. Working with the undead unit of the dead. The reason is very simple. Without the river, this fleet can't go out. Fortunately, the undead are more suitable for hard labor. Old Shoelace is also an obedient subordinate. Willing to accept the command of the dead, David Diozzi will definitely not be so obedient. Xiaoming also found something very interesting. To transfer Old Shoelace and David Diozzi, a total of 4,000 death auras of the Death God silver coins are needed. But the stock of the Death God silver coins is only more than 3,500, which is not enough. Don't look at the Death Accuser using Death Harvest, and get a lot of Death Aura, so much that he can't even hold it. It can only be allowed to spread in the air. However, these Death Auras cannot be transferred to the Death God silver coins. They don't accept this. The Death God silver coins only accept one way to replenish, that is, the players accumulate by eliminating enemies. Xiaoming was unwilling to give up, and naturally used the universal golden finger source energy. The result was of course wonderful. As long as the hoe is well wielded, there is no corner that cannot be dug down. Although the game settings are strict, it still obeys the source energy. This also gave Xiaoming a revelation. Will the golden statue of the God of Light be the same? After the experiment, it was found that it was indeed the case. Although the energy system of the statue is called the faith value. But it is actually still a kind of energy. It's just that the source of this energy is transmitted from the God of Light. Because of the believer's faith in him, the God of Light will get certain benefits every day, and every time they pray, the God of Light will also get benefits. In return, the God of Light will inject a certain amount of energy into the explorer's statue. Although this energy is nominally called the faith value, but its essence is still a kind of energy. As long as it is energy, source energy can be simulated. The so-called everything can be processed. Here it means that source energy can be processed into whatever shape it wants. So far, there is only one energy that Xiaoming's source energy cannot simulate, that is another source energy. Xiaoming can't convert his silver source energy into green source energy, nor can he convert green into silver. I don't know if it is impossible. Or is Xiaoming's level not enough? Anyway, it is definitely not possible for the time being. Xiaoming will find other things that cannot be converted in the future. Supplementing the death breath and faith value to the treasure consumes very little source energy. Xiaoming can use it freely. Money can't buy early knowledge. How many things have been delayed? My brain is really stupid. When Xiaoming first discovered the situation, he wanted to punch himself 3 times and kick him twice. With the ability of true one mind and two uses, he can indeed use Xiao He to punch Xiaoming 3 times and kick him twice. With Xiao He's strength, he would probably be crippled with one kick. Fortunately, Xiaoming was just talking and not practicing, just thinking about it. The diver returned to the bottom of the sea to coax the child, and told the dead to lead 2 groups of undead to build infrastructure. Under the operation of Yin Xiaoming, the researcher was doing the task of upgrading to level 2 in Tanshan City. The task was quite simple. The researcher only needed to complete the production of 20 level 1 puppets within the specified time. This kind of task was a piece of cake for Xiaoming. Now Yin Xiaoming is working hard to make it. Green Xiaoming switched to the Explorer and was very excited to use the holy statue to make Han Dong's subordinates transfer to ascetics. At this moment, Mao Mao suddenly called Xiaoming. The alien insect egg in the Chu galaxy that was taken over by Xiaoming seemed to be about to hatch. This is a big deal. Yin Xiaoming stayed in the game and continued to play. Green Xiaoming quickly exited the game and returned to the personal space of the game. At this time, not only Mao Mao was present, but also the 9-tailed fox came. The 2 artificial intelligences had a brief discussion with Xiaoming. Green Xiaoming followed the consciousness transmission channel and came to the Chu star system, on an asteroid, in a bug egg the size of an American football. The feeling this time was completely different from the feeling when Xiaoming left the bug egg. When he left, Xiaoming could not feel any light or sound in the egg. There was only darkness and silence. It was scary. Now, probably because the insect he possessed has grown quite well, Xiaoming can vaguely see a ray of light, hear a little sound, and have a very warm touch. What is even more rare is that the Zerg seem to be born with a kind of mental power, which is the kind of telepathy that Xiaoming felt at the beginning. The mental power of this little insect seems to be wrapped in some huge mental power. That huge mental power is both protecting him and teaching him. And this teaching cannot be described in words. It is a kind of silent teaching and influence. When he came last time, Xiaoming was in the dark. This time he is a person with telekinesis. Xiaoming let go of the circle, and all objects within a radius of 1 kilometer around him were clearly visible. There is only one such asteroid in this area, which is about the size of a 10-story building. It is much larger than the rock where the probe was previously located. There were 6 deep pits on this asteroid made by the Zerg, and each pit had an egg incubating. Xiaoming carefully scanned the body of the worm he had taken over with his telekinesis, but it was just the most common squid worm. Why didn't he give it a more advanced egg? Xiaoming said, a little dissatisfied. He didn't even think about it. How could a high-level egg be placed in such a remote place to hatch? The only thing that could hatch here could be cannon fodder. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 269. 2 days later, at noon on Sunday, June 19, the egg in which Green Xiaoming was located hatched. Or rather, Green Xiaoming took the initiative to break out of the egg. But what hatched out was not a squid worm, but a worm man about 1.8 meters tall. It roughly looked like a humanoid creature. If you look closely, there are many differences from humans. This person has a long tail, and his body is covered with bone armor mixed with red, black and brown. He also has a bone crown like a helmet on his head. There is a shadow of Xiaoming between his eyebrows, but he is more ferocious than Xiaoming. After all, he is a mixed blood. The whole situation was actually a bit beyond Xiaoming's expectations. He picked up a big bargain for nothing. Xiaoming has never forgotten about this insect egg, and he has already made plans. Xiaoming first obtained the Mind Beast clone, the alien lord in the secret realm of the Alien vs. Iron Warrior. The clone then merged the genes of the Chimera ant in the Hunter's secret realm and evolved into the Mind Beast clone, the Chimera Alien Queen. At that time, Xiaoming thought that when the insect egg of the Chu galaxy was about to hatch, he would definitely come over to let the Alien Queen merge with the insect egg and absorb new genetic information. So in the past 2 days, Green Xiaoming has been trying to fuse the Alien Queen with the insect egg. Silver Xiaoming would also come to help frequently. On the one hand, it is the superpower of the dual source energy, and on the other hand, the Zerg, aliens, and Chimera ants of the Chu galaxy have many common characteristics. So after 2 days, Xiaoming really figured out this fusion. For this newly born fusion, Xiaoming calls it the King of the Insect Man. The most important change is that the King of the Insect Man is no longer a mind beast, but a flesh and blood body. It is the product of the fusion of multiple characteristics of humans, Zerg, Chimera ant, and alien. This body has become one of Xiaoming's permanent bodies. The status of the King of Zergman and Zhang Xiaoming's original body is on par. It is much higher than the clone Xiaoming, the clone Zhang Xiaoliang, the genetically modified Xiaoming, etc. Because this body only accepts Xiaoming's own soul. Unlike those clones, it cannot be driven by intelligent programs or some hackers. The King of Zergman roughly maintains the appearance of humans, which is of course due to the obsession of Xiaoming, a human. The King of Zergman can use almost all of Xiaoming's abilities, and some of his abilities are several times stronger than Xiaoming's original body. Because the flesh and blood of this body come from the Zerg. The Zerg not only gave the King of Zergman a strong physical quality, it also gave him a strong mental power. This is determined by the characteristics of the Zerg itself. As a race in space, the Zerg's physical strength is unquestionable. Although the Zerg in the Chu galaxy is weaker, the genetic information of the Zerg contains the powerful characteristics of their ancestors. The squid worm itself is an individual that can fight against the small spaceships of the new Han Space Army. It would be great if it could merge with the bodies of more advanced Zerg. The squid worm is almost the bottom of the Zerg. The inheritance of the Zerg's spiritual power is more interesting. 2 days ago, when Xiaoming first came to the worm egg, the huge spiritual power he felt was not the spiritual power of any individual Zerg. At first, Xiaoming thought it was the spiritual power of the Zerg Queen. Later, he learned that it was the collective spiritual power ocean of the Zerg. According to the soul strength of each new Zerg, the spiritual power ocean will give it different strengths of spiritual power. The Zerg usually rely on this spiritual power ocean to communicate with each other. One of the carriers of this spiritual power ocean is the brown fog covering the entire interior of the Chu galaxy. The New Han Kingdom calls it the sheltered zone. The fog is actually part of the Zerg. Or the Zerg is actually the child of the fog. Just like the creatures on Pangostar, they can actually be called the children of some primitive organic soup on Pangostar billions of years ago. Zerg is really a race where heroes don't ask where they come from. Even the lowest level Zerg, as long as the soul is strong, will get strong mental power. And the different levels of mental power determine the status of each Zerg. Zerg with high status can naturally command Zerg with low status. How to say Xiaoming's soul strength? Not as good as the best, but better than the worst. Although the Zerg's spiritual power ocean is awesome, it is not yet able to see the source energy deep in Xiaoming's soul. Of course, Xiaoming's soul strength is definitely not weak. Even if Silver Xiaoming and Green Xiaoming are counted separately, each is at least more than twice that of ordinary humans, which is much higher than ordinary Zerg. Low-level Zerg like squid worms, its soul level is far worse than that of ordinary people. But its mental power is by no means inferior to that of an ordinary human. When Green Xiaoming found that the spiritual power ocean would nourish his spiritual power, Silver Xiaoming, who was still playing games at the time, immediately put down what he was doing and came to share the benefits. Both Silver Xiaoming and Green Xiaoming were recognized by the Zerg's spiritual power ocean. Even though he was a humanoid creature, the Zerg recognized that Xiaoming belonged to the Zerg. Therefore, the spiritual power of Xiaoming's two souls both received sufficient nutrition, and each of them increased several times. Although Xiaoming obtained the spiritual power of the Zerg, he also inherited certain knowledge. But the Zerg itself has no language, and they communicate through spiritual power. In the communication of spiritual power, this is this, and it is enough to understand the spirit. Both sides can understand it. But if it is changed to language, which one is this? Who knows what this means? If Xiaoming wants to express himself, he needs to name many things of the Zerg. Xiaoming uses rank and level to give the individual status of the Zerg, and sorts them according to the level of mental power. Silver Xiaoming is probably in the position of 5th level senior, and Green Xiaoming can be ranked at about 6th level junior. When the two are together, 1 add 1 \U003E2. They can be ranked at 6th level senior. In the Zerg, the rank difference is quite serious. The high-level Zerg can directly command the low-level Zerg, and the low-level Zerg basically must execute it, even if it means sending them to death. The level difference is not so serious. The high-level Zerg of the same level cannot directly command the low-level Zerg, which can only be regarded as suggestions. Of course, generally speaking, as long as the suggestion is not too outrageous, the low-level Zerg will still comply. But these are ineffective for Xiaoming. Even if it is an order from a high-level Zerg, Xiaoming will definitely not comply as long as he feels it is inappropriate. Of course, not accepting orders also has a price. Xiaoming basically cannot move an inch in the Zerg. The mental power ocean will gradually exclude Xiaoming. But for the time being, Xiaoming has no worries in this regard. Because in the spiritual sea, the highest level of Zerg still active is level 6. It seems that there are level 7 or even higher, but they seem to be in a state of confinement and cannot give orders to the Zerg. This is also quite interesting. Maybe there is some conspiracy or inside story behind it? Magic Planet Online Game. Author, Lanzai Cai Shi Zhen Shen. Chapter 270. Xiaoming actually did an experiment a long time ago. He wanted to see if he could use source energy to improve his mental power, but the result was no, he couldn't even find the corresponding blue bar. The source of mental power was beyond Xiaoming's understanding, it should be something from the depths of the soul. Such a mysterious thing, even source energy cannot be directly converted. I didn't expect that this time, the possession of the Zerg would give Xiaoming such a big surprise. Facing the situation within the Zerg, Xiaoming's biggest advantage is that no bug can control him. He can completely form a Zerg tribe of his own. To do this, he also needs to leave this territory that already belongs to other 6th level Zergs and find an unowned land in the fog. This can be arranged slowly. Xiaoming must first learn some skills. The Zerg's mental power ocean, of course, is not just to give the new Zerg mental power. It also teaches the new Zerg some usable mental skills. And Xiaoming's 6th level advanced mental power can really learn a lot of very powerful skills. However, the Zerg also has limitations in this regard. A Zerg unit can learn at most the same number of skills as its own mental power level. That is to say, Xiaoming can only learn 6 mental power skills. And the mental power ocean is not a computer. Xiaoming can find all the skills he can learn by clicking search. He must use mental power to travel in this ocean and try his luck. Only when he encounters a skill can he learn a skill. Low-level Zergs are easy to deal with. They can only learn a few skills by themselves, and such low-level skills are very easy to learn in the mental sea. High-level Zergs are much simpler than Xiaoming, because they are limited by their body genes and not every skill can be learned. So the skill library of the mental sea is only partially open to them, so that they have a much greater chance of encountering suitable skills. But in Xiaoming's case, his genes have no restrictions on him, and all Zerg skills can be learned. Xiaoming is a little more picky and always wants to see more before making a decision. Therefore, his learning process is much longer than that of other Zergs. Because Zergs cannot change skills after learning them, unless they advance to a higher level, they can learn one more. So Xiaoming thinks it is worth being more picky. There is no need to learn mental power skills all at once. As long as he hasn't learned all the skills, Xiaoming can come to the spiritual sea to search at any time. We'll talk about this kind of luck-based thing later. Let's take a look at what other characteristics the King of Zerg has. The Chimera ants and aliens bring some special abilities to the King of Zerg. Mainly genetic. The Zerg itself has a queen who is responsible for laying eggs. Note that the queen is not the supreme leader of the Zerg, they are only responsible for laying eggs. Of course, their own qualities are also top-notch, otherwise how can they give birth to powerful offspring? There are no so-called males in the Zerg, and there is no such thing as mating between the sexes. The way the queen lays eggs is actually similar to that of the alien or chimera ants. It will also seize the genetic information of other organisms to transform and strengthen the new eggs. However, this Zerg in the Chu galaxy has evolved for a long time, and there is no new genetic information worth learning from in this universe. Aren't humans outsiders? Did the arrival of the new Han Kingdom's space army provide new genetic information for the Zerg? This really hasn't happened. The Zerg has already obtained the genetic information of humans. Xiaoming will know these later. Because the genetic methods of the Zerg, chimera ants, and aliens have something in common, the three can be successfully integrated. They can't tell who absorbed whom, but in the end they were all absorbed and integrated by Xiaoming. Only then did the Zerg King, who is neither a Zerg nor a human, come into being. This is a brand new race, which Xiaoming calls the Zerg Man. Zerg Man also has no gender characteristics, and the continuation of the tribe is a comprehensive way of playing. The Zerg King is responsible for laying eggs. When the tribe expands to a certain extent, the Zerg King will produce an Zerg King egg, which will hatch and establish his own tribe. If the original Zerg King dies unexpectedly, his subordinates will automatically belong to the tribe of other nearby Zerg Kings. But if there are no other Zerg Kings within a certain range, one of his subordinates will be transformed into a temporary Zerg King. Produce Zerg King eggs and continue the tribe. The Zerg King's egg-laying method is the same as that of Xiao He before. They all spit eggs out of their mouths. However, there is no limit on the number of eggs. If Xiaoming wants, no one will care if he lays 100 million eggs. The body of the Zerg King can store hundreds of biological genetic information, and each egg will be given 1-3 kinds of information. The Zerg that emerges after the eggs hatch will have the characteristics of those 1-3 creatures. If they are in a sheltered area, they can also be blessed by the Zerg spiritual sea. In the eyes of the Zerg spiritual sea, the Zerg human is just a mutant branch of the Zerg. The appearance characteristics of this branch, most of them are humanoid, with red, black, and brown bone armor, and a long tail with a straw. The way the Zerg King absorbs nutrients and genetic information has changed. The previous Xiao He ate with his mouth. Now the tip of the tail of the Zerg King has a retractable straw. It has strong penetrating power and can penetrate into the body of other creatures, sucking the other party's flesh and energy until the other party is sucked into a mummy, and then dust returns to dust, turning into dust and blown away by the wind. It seems that the original indestructible back molars of the alien have been transferred to the tail. The Bug King no longer has any back teeth in his mouth. Of course, the King of Insects can still eat normally, and can taste all kinds of flavors. Xiaoming can't give up even delicious food. That's why he has to use his tail instead of eating raw meat and drinking blood. The newborn insect man is a space race. The tail of the insect man has the ability to spray in any direction, and the body of the insect man can also adapt to the environment of space. Of course, his flying speed in space is relatively ordinary, roughly equivalent to the small aircraft of the New Han Kingdom. The current image of the king of insects is very similar to Cell in Dragon Ball. It's just that the bone armor on his body is still black. Of course, Xiao Ming's Mind Beast clone Xiao He still exists, and the ability of this Mind Beast clone has not changed at all. The real situation should be said that Xiao Ming used source energy to transform an incompletely formed body of the insect race according to the characteristics of the chimera ant and the alien learned in the game. The magic modification gave rise to a freak like the king of insects. After the king of insects was hatched, Xiao Ming's possession was naturally a complete success. Xiao Ming's two bodies also established an instant connection. In fact, it is Xiao Ming's two souls, controlling his two bodies in two universes at the same time. If Xiao Ming wants, the two souls can of course take turns playing between the two bodies. But it doesn't make much sense.